The rain had not stopped since dawn, but it did not matter to the old man standing at the edge of the cemetery gates. His coat was thin, patched at the elbows, and his boots were held together with string rather than laces. In his trembling hands he clutched a single photograph, its edges worn soft from years of touching. The guards at the gate saw him and exchanged a glance that needed no words. "This is a private ceremony," one of them said, stepping forward with practiced authority. "Military personnel and invited family only. I'm going to need you to move along." The old man did not argue. He simply nodded, the way people do when they have been turned away so many times that protest no longer feels worth the energy, and took one small step back into the rain. If you have ever watched someone give up before they even finished asking, you know how quietly heartbreaking that moment can be. And if this story is already tugging at something in your chest, stay with it, because what happens next will remind you why we keep believing in people. The old man's name was Thomas Whitfield, though nobody at that gate knew it, and nobody cared to ask. To them he was simply an inconvenience, a stranger in shabby clothes standing between a fallen general and the dignity of his final farewell. The funeral inside was grand, exactly as it should have been for a man who had given 40 years of his life to his country. Rows of polished boots, crisp uniforms, medals gleaming even under gray skies. Somewhere among the mourners sat senators, decorated officers, and men whose names appeared in history books. And somewhere outside the gate stood a forgotten old man, soaked to the bone, still holding onto a photograph no one had bothered to look at. It might have ended there. A quiet injustice folded into an already sorrowful day, if not for the black sedan that pulled up moments later. Its door opened, and General Marcus Reyes, a 4-star general whose presence commanded silence in any room, stepped out into the downpour without an umbrella. He was known for many things: discipline, courage under fire, an unshakable sense of duty. But what people often forgot was that before all the medals, he had been an 18-year-old private, terrified and far from home. His eyes moved past the guards, past the gates, and landed on the old man shivering at the edge of the road. Something in his chest tightened, a memory surfacing from decades ago that he had never quite let go of. "Sir, stop," General Reyes said, his voice cutting through the rain like a command that had never once been questioned. The guards straightened immediately, confusion flashing across their faces as the general walked directly toward the old man. Ignoring the protocol, ignoring the officials waving him toward the ceremony, he stopped in front of Thomas and looked at the photograph still clutched in those trembling hands. It was a picture of 2 young soldiers, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning like the war outside the frame did not exist. "You're Whitfield," the general said quietly, recognition washing over his face. "You pulled Colonel Hayes out of that ambush in '71. You saved his life." Thomas nodded slowly, tears mixing with the rain on his weathered cheeks. "He was my friend," he whispered. "I just wanted to say goodbye." The general turned to the stunned guards, his voice rising with an authority that left no room for hesitation. "This man bled beside the general we are burying today. He carried him to miles through gunfire when everyone else thought it was hopeless. If it were not for him, none of us would be standing here paying our respects, because there would be no Colonel Hayes to become the general we all admired." The guards parted instantly, heads bowed, ashamed of their earlier judgment. General Reyes personally walked Thomas through the gates, past the rows of decorated officers who now rose to their feet, past the silence that had settled over the entire cemetery, and seated him in the front row beside the family, a place of honor long overdue. As the ceremony continued, Thomas placed his weathered hand on the casket, whispering words meant only for the friend who had once owed him his life. In that instant, the difference between a forgotten stranger and an honored hero was not medals or rank, but the courage of one man willing to see the truth others overlooked. If this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you that dignity often hides behind torn coats and quiet eyes, then do not let it end here. Share it with someone who needs reminding that kindness still matters. Subscribe for more stories like this one, and let us know in the comments who in your life deserves to be seen the way General Reyes saw Thomas that day.